He was in the men's room is where he was.
Let's send this next tune out for Andy and for Sheila, Ishka, and also for the Menzers, Carol, and for my cousin Joey out there. Also for Sophia and Alexa, Ishka. We're going to do one entitled The Good Spirits Polka. Let's also send this next tune out for Steve and Teresa Zienka. Nice to see these fine folks. And also for Sally and Barb Kubas. Part of the Sally. Also send this tune out for Joe and Linda Shipka with us. Welcome home.
See, even doesn't say that.
There we go. For these fine folks, we're going to do entitled The Good Spirits Polka.
Of course, this is St. Sava's Picnic Grove here in Ohio on West Ridgewood Drive, and we're listening to the fine sounds of Old School, Dave Walter and Company from Cleveland, Ohio. Dave Walter heads up the band.
All right, folks, right now on the card game, the winner for $130 is the Ace of Clubs.
Of course, Davey Pietchak's playing clarinet and sax. Stephen Gerard on the trumpet. Dave Walter's wife, Kelly Walter, is on the piano. Steve
The
Zalanik,
ace of
of course,
clubs.
who's on the
is
Polka
winner.
radio there with that Polka Jukebox
$130
show, which premiered yesterday. He's playing the concertina. And, of course, Frankie Lishka on the bass. So, great talented musicians that are playing with Old School, and some of them played this weekend at the IPA. Frankie Lishka and Blue Magic did, of course the Beat did, and of course Polka Family did. So Davey was with Polka Family last night, and Steve Gerard was with the Beat, and Frankie Lishka, of course, heads up Blue Magic, who played Friday at the ITA Festival. Again, great job by all those bands and every other band that performed there this past weekend at the IPA Festival and Convention. Great sounding, fantastic music all weekend long.
Are you not? Featuring heavily on the vocal that time, one tone of Are You Mine?
So, the concertina guy is Steve Zalanik. That's Steve Zalanik, yep. Yes. Yes. Yes, yeah, I'm friends with him on Facebook. Yeah, I talked to him, so yeah. And this is St. Sava's Picnic Grounds here in Palm, Ohio on West Ridgewood Drive. And we're listening to the fine sounds of Old School, Dave Walter and Company, of course from Cleveland, Ohio, and one of the local bands. And of course the musicians in the band, of course David Walter holds up the band. Davey Pietrzak, who played with Polka Family last night, is on the clarinet and sax. Steve Hayest, or Steven Gerard, plays the trumpet, and you know him from The Beat, and TPM, and Change of Pace. And of course, Frankie Lishka from the Blue Magic, leader of that band. Of course, TBC. And Bruno Mikas and Harmony Stars, to name a few, on the bass. Dave Walter's wife on the piano, Kelly Walter. And Steve Zelanik on the concertina. Of course, Steve played with TBC and many other bands throughout the years. And of course, Steve has that Polka Jukebox show, which is on Polka Radio, which premiered yesterday. So be sure to check his show out on Sundays, noon to 2 on polkaradio.org, the new streaming 24/7 Polka network. Check them out. And for those who were on the boat ride with Lenny and the Bush, hope you had a great time. And if you're tuned in watching, thanks for joining us. Hope you enjoyed the boat ride at on the Gateway Clipper in Pittsburgh today. And hope everyone else is doing well out there on this Labor Day weekend, as we are here at the CPA Labor Day Dance with Old School here at St. Sava's Picnic Grounds in Parma. And hello to everyone that's joining us that just tuned in. Thanks for joining us as always. We appreciate it. Dziękuję bardzo from the bottom of our hearts. And this is St. Sava's Picnic Grounds here in Parma, Ohio, just south of Cleveland on West Ridgewood Drive. And we are listening to the fine sounds of Old School. David Walter and a nice bunch of talented musicians in this band headed up part of Old School. And they are from, of course, locally in the Cleveland, Ohio area, one of the local bands. And they're playing for the Cleveland Polka Association's Labor Day Picnic Dance here, sponsored by the Cleveland Polka Association. And this is their second set of the afternoon, and they're going till 7 o'clock this evening. So if you happen to be in the area, if you like what you're hearing, come on over and join in the fun as the music goes till 7 o'clock. And great way to cap off a great weekend, holiday weekend, a polka weekend. Linda Chuck Merwin out there in Rochester, New York, you're very welcome, and thanks for watching the videos, not only just today, but this past weekend at the IPA Festival and Convention. I hope you and Marty are doing well out there. And as always, thanks for joining us. Thanks for tuning in, as well as everyone else that's watching. Whether you're coming from the boat ride with Lenny and the Push at the Gateway Clipper there in Pittsburgh, or if you're traveling back home to wherever it may be from the IPA or wherever else. Thanks for joining us here at the CPA Labor Day Picnic Dance with Old School here at St. Sava's Picnic Grounds in Parma, Ohio, just south of Cleveland. A little hop, skip, and jump, as they say. And of course, we were at the IPA Festival and Convention this past weekend over at the Doubletree Hotel in Cranberry Township, Pennsylvania, just north of Pittsburgh. And what a blast it was this past weekend. And once again, a big, huge thank you goes out to the International Polka Association for putting on yet another outstanding, fantastic, tremendous, super job this past weekend. Hats off to all of you members and directors and officers for putting on, again, what else can we say, and everyone else who attended. I think we can all say times 100, times 1,000, maybe even a million times, thank you, IPA. We appreciate you for all you did and for putting on a great job, giving us fans great, terrific music all weekend long. And thank you to everyone that watched our videos this past weekend. We appreciate it very much. And thanks for the kind compliments, whether we saw you in person or you were telling us while you were watching from wherever you were. So thank you. And also hats off to the Polka Jammer Network for their live remotes as well. So glad we could capture the sights and sounds from all weekend long in picture and video format.
one down, we'll do a nice pretty waltz for you right now. One titled Zusha, 183.
And we have a nice crowd on hand here at the CPA Labor Day Dance Picnic at the St. Sava's Picnic Grounds here in Parma, Ohio on West Ridgewood Drive. As we're listening to the fine sounds of Old School, as they are providing super terrific sounds here today on this gorgeous afternoon here on this Labor Day. As we put the ribbon and a bow on yet another holiday, another polka weekend, holiday polka weekend. And for those who are traveling back to wherever you may be, safe travels, and we hope to see you again along that polka road wherever you're heading. Whether you're heading north of the border, heading west, heading east, south,
So here we go. We're all
you name it.
dancers, one entitled Zusha, 183.
And if you're getting off the boat ride on the Gateway Clipper with Lenny and the Push, we hope you had a great time, and thanks for joining us.
What beat of Paradise?
Hey, honey, we're going to have a new accordion player come in. He's extra cute.
What's his name? Coach?
Daniel, you want a job? You're so cute. Daniel, you're doing great. We'll put him on the road all next summer.
Who's driving?
You need a booking manager, and the girls will fall all over you.
Okay, we're going to feature Kelly on the vocal of this next tune. This one's entitled The Polka Music Polka.
Daniel, don't go.
Send us out for the bros, hanging out, Felicia Bros, Danny, and for Andy.
What's up, bro? You're so big.
We're going to do this last polka, and then we're going to take a short intermission. Here we go, featuring Kelly on this tune. One entitled The Polka Music Polka.
Nice. Got it.
Zagraj trzeszczoteczki dla mojej dzieweczki, zagraj dla mnie, zagraj dla mnie. Zagraj trzeszczoteczki dla mojej dzieweczki, zagraj dla mnie, zagraj dla mnie.
More music to come till 7 o'clock, so
We'll be
stick
back in a
around.
short few minutes. Don't forget for the Facebook.